Hey everybody, so you just heard a part of the new James Horner score for the new Spider-Man film, The Amazing Spider-Man, and that is because for this video I'm going to finally review The Amazing Spider-Man, which I posted a pre-discussion for before making this video. So let's get started. So The Amazing Spider-Man, guys, it is a reboot of the 2002 Sam Raimi film of the same name, except that one was just called Spider-Man. Um, so in this Spider-Man reboot, you guys, um, the film begins with Peter as a young boy, and um, we're really not informed much, but what we know from what we see is that Peter's parents have to evacuate their home immediately, and Peter is immediately under custody of his aunt and uncle, which we remember from the first film as Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Um, and so immediately his parents leave him and say that he's going to live with his aunt and uncle for a while, as shown in the trailer as well. Um, and throughout the course of Peter's life, he's always curious as to what exactly happened to his parents that night. Um, it's not until he finds a briefcase in his basement that has information about his father, Richard Parker, is where Peter really starts to get curious about the mystery of his parents, which happens around his senior year of high school. In the briefcase, he finds out about a man called Kurt Connors, who is a man who works for Oscorp in New York City. And Kurt Connors once worked with Peter's dad. And so, that being said, Peter wants to get to know Kurt Connors as much as possible. Since a good friend of his from high school, Gwen Stacy, which most of you remember in the comics is Peter Parker's first love interest, um, he knows that Gwen works for Oscorp, and so what he does is he joins an interim group and gets a tour of Oscorp, and this is Peter's chance to finally meet Kurt Connors. Um, and so Peter gets sidetracked during the tour, and this is where he gets his spider bite. Maybe he later becomes Spider-Man. Um, and throughout the rest of the film, Peter, after becoming Spider-Man, after going through a series of things that you'll remember from the first Spider-Man, same origin, don't want to repeat it, most of you already know. And if you don't know it, I guess it's good because you'll get more surprise for this film. But anyway, the whole origin thing starts up again at this point in the movie. And the real conflict of the story comes in where Kurt Connors creates a serum at Oscorp that will allow people to turn into lizards at night, but the advantage of taking this serum is that you won't have to sleep. You will regenerate your body very quickly. If you lose an arm, you'll grow it back. If you get hurt, you will not feel pain after a matter of seconds. So there's a lot of advantages of taking this serum, but there's also a huge disadvantage, which in this case is turned into a giant lizard. Kurt Connors gets obsessed with the serum, and overnight he becomes a lizard. And even during the serum gets extreme enough where even during the day or in the morning or any time of the day he can become the lizard because of this serum that he's constantly exposing himself to. And so since Peter is Spider-Man at this point in the story, that the hero that we're always familiar with from the Spider-Man stories in the comics, the TV show, and movies from the Sam Raimi versions, it's now his duty to make sure that Lizard's plan of forcing everybody to be exposed to the serum, which he plans on posting at the top of a tower and spraying gas all over the city, causing people to be exposed to this serum as well. It's his duty now to make sure that Lizard's plans do not succeed and that the city can sleep safely that night, and that it's kind of his opportunity to become this big hero of the city where people will know Spider-Man is their hero of the city, their guardian of the city, and their protector. So that's about as much of storyline I want to give away because there is so much that happens in this film. It's a good 2 hours and 16 minutes, I believe, too. And for those who are wondering, Mark Webb is the director of this film. He directed 500 Days of Summer before this movie. But I really want to get to the positives and negatives because I have quite a few of them for this film. First off, there was some really great action and CGI effects in this film. If you're looking for that kind of a movie with great action scenes and great special effects and great CGI, this is the film to go to because it's very impressive in that department. Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy was very good in this. on the scenes where her and Peter are falling in love and really getting to know each other and being interested in each other and becoming friends and becoming boyfriend girlfriend. Um, they just have great chemistry, and because Emma Stone's performance was so good as Gwen Stacy, it really makes the film shine. Um, Martin Sheen was an excellent choice for Uncle Ben. He was a great replacement for Cliff Robertson, who passed away about a year or so, unfortunately, a year or so ago. Um, but anyway, Martin Sheen was a very good Uncle Ben in this. I'm glad he got the part. Everything you remember from Uncle Ben from the 2002 version of Spider-Man is back, and in some ways, he's even more of a father figure in this one. So if you're looking for that aspects of Uncle Ben, you're going to be very happy what Martin Sheen does with his performance of this movie. I liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man in this film. I did not much care for him as Peter Parker. The Peter Parker I always remembered, specifically from the first film and in the comics and the TV show, is he was the nerd. He was the outcast. He was the kid that would always be in his room working on science experiments. What I don't like about Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Spider-Man is he almost had the lost child um, the lost child approach to him, kind of like, oh, if I don't know what my parents' secrets are, I'm not going to succeed, and oh, I got to be dopey, and oh, I got to be sad, and oh, I got to be this. And I also didn't like how he was this, skateboarder, popular photographer. Because I mean, Peter Parker was not popular in the comics. He was an outcast. He was a nerd. Like what Stanley said, he was pretty much what he was like in high school. And to me, what they did, how Andrew Garfield chose to be the Peter Parker aspect of the character, I really didn't care for. But as far as being Spider-Man, I loved the quick one-liners. I liked how he was overconfident in the suit. I loved how he was tough, fast. Everything you remember from the comics, he was like in this movie. So huge thumbs up on Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man half of the role. Um, I thought the romance between Peter and Gwen was very good. Um, what I think what really made that succeed in this movie is because Mark Webb's previous film, 500 Days of Summer, dealt with a lot of romance. Um, it was quite clear that writing romance for this film was going to be very easy, very good, because it was very good in his previous film. So Peter and Gwen had great chemistry in this, good romance in this movie. Also, for those who are wondering if this film sets up for a part two, a sequel, it does that very well. From what I picked up the pieces on in this movie, it seems like Green Goblin the third from the comics, in this case it would be Green Goblin the first, um, and Uncle Ben's killer. I won't talk about him too much, but there is just enough about both of those characters that you're going to know about in the film after you view it. That you can see how they could work off of those characters for a sequel. So I won't be surprised if either character returns for the sequel. Um, Lizard's portrayal and origin on screen was very good. It was everything I remember about the Lizard from the comics and TV show was done right in this film. Huge thumbs up on Rhys Ifans for portraying the character. He did a very good job with being Kurt Connors the way I remembered him. Um, as far as the negatives go for this film, you guys, like I said, Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker, I wasn't too impressed with. In some ways, Tobey Maguire was better as Peter Parker, but Andrew Garfield was better at being Spider-Man because of the one-liners and everything else. Like I said, I just really didn't care as Peter Parker having the lost child feeling. I just didn't get the impression that this kid was a nerd, an outcast. I needed to see more of that in this movie. There was a lot of sequences in this film where Peter Parker was skateboarding, specifically a lot of tricks that would be very hard for someone like Peter Parker to do. A lot of huge jumps, a lot of tricks. So I didn't buy into the skateboarding scenes. It just didn't say Peter Parker to me. I also really did not like how Peter's power discovery was played up for laughs in this. If you remember from the first film, his fingertips stick to the wall, and that's how he's able to climb the walls of Spider-Man. They play off of that joke way too much in this, and when they do, the jokes are very dry and flat, and I really wish they didn't do that in this. Sam Raimi's films were overall better, in my opinion. Um, actually, a few positives I accidentally left out. Um, the first-person view shots in this film, where we get to see Spider-Man in first person, where we actually feel like we're web slinging along with him as Spider-Man. Very impressive. I really like those first person view shots of Spider-Man. Um, And like I said, Green Goblin the Third and Uncle Ben's Killer, they were set up for good enough sequel villains that I was happy with that. And back to the negatives. James Horner's score was just not as good as Danny Elfman's score from the first two films. It didn't yell Spider-Man at me music-wise. Uh, what they did to Captain Stacy might disappoint some of the fans because Captain Stacy was such an important character in the comics. So I almost wish they did more with him because, especially what they did at the end of the film with him. Uh, I really wish they gave us more of a chance to know Captain Stacy in a sequel. I think that would have been really neat. Um, there was a subway scene in this film that was very dull and boring to watch, and it was around the time where Peter first got his powers as Spider-Man, and it felt very dull. It felt like a very lame way for Peter to learn a certain aspect of his power during a subway train. Um, Overall, guys, I just thought Tobey Maguire was just a better Peter Parker. He felt more like Peter Parker from the comics to me. Um, and on a side note, that's also my final note, and it's also a positive one. Watch for the end credits scene at the end of this film. It's very mysterious. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat until the sequel comes out. It definitely sets up for the sequel in many ways. So make sure you stay after the credits. There is an end credit scene that's very important to view. So overall, guys, I give The Amazing Spider-Man a 9 out of 10. A very good film, but overall, you know what? I like the Sam Raimi films a tad bit better. But this is a very good Spider-Man movie nonetheless. So 9 out of 10 for me, guys. A very good film, but don't expect a Sam Raimi quality film from the Spider-Man series, that is.